6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Good morning, dear friends. Welcome. How wonderful that you have come this morning. So, as has been our custom for a little while, I invite you to do one of two things. One would be simply to sit, be quiet, centered. Another would be to turn to your neighbor and introduce yourself to them. And with this as a possibility, what is one way you have been the recipient of kindness or generosity in the last week or so? And if not the recipient, then some way that you've been kind, generous yourself. But let's see if there isn't something in recipientship. Anybody here for the first time today? 1, 2, 3, welcome. I always wonder what it's like to walk in this door for the first time. I actually remember when we did for the first time. The building came up for sale and we'd been looking for a while, and the realtor was not a nice person. We discovered he sold us the property, and there was another building out this way, pretty run down. But it turned out that the building wasn't actually on this property. This end of this block all belonged to the church. And it had been subdivided, so the minister's house, which is still there, was separate legally. But it turned out that, and our realtor missed it somehow, and so we paid for and we had that other building as part of our plan. And then he noticed, oh gosh, it isn't part of the plot. So they gave us back $25,000, which was great because we needed it badly for the repairs. But then we discovered that, gosh, there was a plan to put up those 2 houses there. And oddly enough, our realtor was the person doing it. Just by chance, But he also, the day that we came to view the place, we're very anxious, right? We're going to buy a building. There was a Russian group that wanted it too, and he scheduled us both at the same time. Oh, there it is. That's a bit loud. So, refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Where could we possibly take refuge in a universe which is in constant change? In a planet which is constantly changing, in relationships that are fast changing. Oh, maybe I'll read this now. Yeah, it'd be a nice way to start the morning. So, refuge in the Buddha, in that which is awake, which isn't far away, it's right here, right? It's that which knows. And then in the Dharma, in what is it that we discover? What do we see? What do we see about impermanence when we pay attention? And if we look around and we realize that we need community to do this work, you really can't do it on your own. There's a few people, mystic hermits, but most of us really require lots of support as we turn inward, because of what some of the stuff we discover is beautiful and luminous, but some of it's kind of icky and not so pretty. And so without community, we quit. So we'll sing the refuge chants in a minute, but I have here an email that Doyle Banks said I could share if I wanted to. So Doyle is one of our teachers here at PINC. He particularly is skilled in nonviolent communication. This was written at 12:01 the day before yesterday in the morning. To the teachers' listserv. My dear friends, it's just after midnight Saturday morning, and again I find myself seated in a hospital room with my precious Rachel, his daughter. A couple of months ago, she had an unusually rough sinus infection that lingered for several weeks, went away, then returned, dropping into her lungs. The past couple of weeks, she has been feeling sicker. This morning she called me from urgent care to tell me they were sending her to the Providence ER via ambulance, having told her she had pneumonia. By the time I could get to the hospital, she had been admitted, and the pulmonary doctor was talking about sending her down to the ICU. Within less than 2 hours, she was in the ICU, and by then the ICU pulmonologist was telling us that it was time to talk about putting her on a ventilator because her lungs and body could not keep her oxygen levels where they needed to be. I did not understand until later that meant putting her into a medically induced coma and also paralyzing her in order to let her lungs rest and start healing. They also told us there is no viral pneumonia, nor does there seem to be bacterial pneumonia. She could not breathe fast enough, nor bring in and keep the necessary amount of oxygen. So she is now on the ventilator 100%, meaning she is comatose and paralyzed. And the ventilator is doing all the work. What they believe at this point is that she has either ARDS or AIP. Both are quite serious and potentially lethal. The doctor puts her chances of survival at 45%, though the nurses are saying they've seen good recovery rates, so who knows? Over the next 24 to 48 hours, they will try to take her off the ventilator to see if her lungs can take back their proper function. Hopefully they will be able to do that. If not, well, we know what happens to human bodies that don't breathe. Rachel told the doctor and nurses to not resuscitate her if things go badly. She did have a chance to sign an advance directive, so I hope that doesn't become an issue. I'm feeling so sad because since the 1st of March, she's been doing so well, getting therapy. She's been approved for disability. That will give her the ability to pay her own bills and begin to move forward. A part of me says, this is so unfair. Another part of me says, you just don't know what karma has to work out. The daddy part of me says, my baby girl is in danger, what can I do? Death can come at any moment, my friends. These bodies are both frail and wondrous. Let's love one another, shall we? For who knows what the next moment, hour, day, or bad sinus infection might bring. Sending you my love along with wishes for peace and joy. Doyle. P.S. The doctor just stopped by to let us know her blood is maintaining better oxygen levels, and they may try to take her off paralysis medication tomorrow to see how she does. Since then, she's come off the machine, she's breathing well, and the steroids are working. So she's out of the woods, but that's how fragile it all is. Right? One moment to the next. So, refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. That's better. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Wandering minds are very interesting, aren't they? That letter from Doyle is a nice reminder of fathers and Father's Day and the complicated relationships between parents, particularly fathers and their children. So I'm going to reflect a little bit on that today. But first, let's do nothing for a while, or next to nothing. Let's find a comfortable upright spot. The practice of mindfulness, or heart-mind fullness. Please let us become aware of the fact of awareness. And this awareness is its capacity, its blessing is to know, to become present with. And we commonly start with the body, to be present in the body. Notice how alive it is. In fact, notice that all it is life. And we know that life by sensations. Contact of the body with the chair or the floor or the cushion. The life in the hands. The life in the arms. and the life which is the body breathing. In this age of hyperstimulation, to stop and pay attention to something as mild as the breath can be pretty darn challenging. But it's the very challenge of this that is so helpful. That we actually can learn to pay attention to very subtle phenomena. And in that attending to subtlety, the mind itself will become more pliable, sometimes more calm. And awareness gets to notice much smaller internal and external events. So we attend to the actual sensations of breathing in and breathing out. It's not a fantasy or an imagination of the breath. It's the actual sensations of body. And in this attending, we can notice that it has a beginning, a middle, and an ending, each breath. And the mind, of course, has its tendency to think and to plan, to remember, to create stories. To manifest emotions. And this mysterious awareness, that is the Buddha, notices or can notice. There can be moments of waking up, of noticing, wow, the mind is wandering a lot. Or, yes, here's this familiar self-criticism. Or this familiar emotional storm. I'm going to come home now to the breath, to the body sitting. To be present as life unfolds moment by moment. with the intention to stay present with the in-breathing and out-breathing from its beginning to its end. The way that one fails at this is very instructive. Having this intention illuminates the various activities of the mind. And in this way, the practice of liberation blossoms. Because we begin to see mind, thoughts, emotions as phenomena rather than me or mine. Over time, a certain heart-filled equanimity arises, a capacity to accept whatever happens with increasing awareness and compassion. With the ability to tolerate and even embrace the very painful phenomena that occur in our lives. Resulting in greater peace, greater ease, greater love and compassion. And it all happens one breath at a time. This breath now. Noticing how it breathes itself in and it breathes itself out. In a certain way, this is a training program or exercise regime where we're strengthening concentration and mindfulness, curiosity, persistence and energy, and the kind of inner contentment or delight can arise when the mind becomes more focused, more at ease. As equanimity and tranquility will sometimes emerge. Whatever you discover, whatever reveals itself is normal for the human mind. And perhaps reminding ourselves of the extraordinarily clear and simple guidance from the Thai forest tradition. Whenever you want to bring your practice into perfect balance, remember the words. This moment is like this. This is how this moment is. Could be a moment of high concentration and bliss and delight and no wandering mind, or it could be a mind full of wandering, worrying away at some project that you have to get done or some relationship issue. I take refuge in the Buddha means I will awaken to the truth of this moment. awareness. Consciousness. I believe the most mysterious and little understood phenomenon in the universe. And here it is. A body-mind that can be aware of itself. What is the location of this mind, this awareness? It's a popular notion now. We say, oh, awareness is in the brain. Is that your direct experience? Does it have a location? Becoming aware perhaps of your hands. Is the awareness in the head somehow looking down at the hands, or is that an idea? Perhaps awareness and the sensations in the hands co-arise. Or the face, what we call the face. Does awareness find a face when it pays attention there, or does it find sensations? And please now bringing awareness into that place you think of as eyes or my eyes. Notice the intention to open them. And then let that happen. Let that operationalize so seeing happens. Seeing. And where does this awareness of seeing happen? Or is it just seeing happening? We can practice the Dharma with a notion that someday, if I practice hard enough and long enough, if enough years go by, I'll be able to have a moment of being awake. Why not right now? Why not acknowledge that this is it? But my personality is so screwed up still. Well, maybe that's normal and okay. Not that we can't make inroads into some healing and So now it's right here, being awake. So Jim's going to do a little Qigong, and then Avi will do some announcements. And then I will come back and we'll have a couple of poems. And then I want to speak a little bit about these human beings who in this lifetime played the role of father. Such a huge freedom comes when we can realize that that person that we each think of as my father, was really just another ordinary human being brailing his way through a lifetime. I know I've set a completely different model with my children in my utter perfection, which is not the way they see it. My daughter has come over the year, way back, she used to come and she did the children's program. But she says, "Oh yeah, Dad, it's too hard for me to come and be there because people talk to me with all this starry glow in their eyes. Oh, your father." and she says, and I want to say, yeah, I can tell you some things about that. But so, to Jim. I know your children have few things to say. Let's see if this will work for you. This is the on, so you can put it on with it on probably. On the left side.
Yeah, it feels funny, doesn't it? My voice is right-handed.
Right.
All right. We have a new gadget. It's realigning my spine. All the weight that was over here is now over there. All right. Let's just pour all the energy of the body into one leg and then back into the other. Notice the spontaneous engagement. As soon as you start indicating you want to move that center of gravity, everything lines up to hold you up. And you can turn as you do that also. So the awareness of the center of gravity moving, the awareness of the hips, one hip pulling back and the other one relaxing, and the other hip pulling back and relaxing. Very simple movements, but there's a lot of complication. Sensations all through the knees and the ankles and shoulders relating to this simple movement of the center of gravity. Maybe 30 years ago, I had a friend named Nate, and he would get up every morning and he would tap and turn and pour into so this is Nate's swing. He lived to be 96. And I thought, if it's good enough for Nate, I'm going to start doing this. He also got really fancy. He would take his right hand and lift it and lift his left toe at the same time. And then both hands, and then the left hand and the right toe. He didn't know it, or at least he didn't seem to know it, but he was building a bridge between his right hemisphere and his left by doing this cross-body turning, which is really healthy for the brain. Kids do it all the time. But as we get older and sophisticated, we sit very politely, and we never cross the midline. So, I think what I'll do is cross the midline a lot. So, let's sink and open in a nice even circle, balancing the energy left and right. And then we'll come into the midline and push the palms together and come up and stretch forward and down and just stay on the midline and kind of imagine energy coming up the spine and then down the front of the body as the hands make this circle. So this is called the microcosmic orbit. The orbit of energy around our spines is a microcosm of the energy around the earth. Okay, then we're going to step towards the street, and the foot that we extend and the arm we extend are the same, and we look towards the center of the room, and then back off and look away from the center of the room. So as we back off, we lift that front toe, and all the weight's on the back, and there's balance. And then there's a stretch, and then solid balance. Turning the head, again, that stirs up the inner ear. And then we step to the other side, the opposite. It wakes up that sense of balance, stirring up the little canals in our inner ear. Okay. Now we're going to balance on the tree side and use our hands like electromagnetic paddles and take energy down into the relaxed leg and then put all the energy, all the stability and balance into the street side leg and then come down the other side. They call this a needle at the bottom of the sea, but I think of it as a treatment. I've got these paddles that bring energy down. Okay. Then we get square again, feet parallel. Both palms facing the same direction. We push towards the trees and then push toward the street. This is called casting the net, like you're pushing the nets off the side of the boat. But what we're doing is opening lymph nodes on one side and then opening them on the other, and we're pumping lymphatic fluid. Okay, so now we're going to find a safe place to move and turn a wheel and then point towards the trees and then move the leg behind and point towards the street and move the other leg behind. So the Master Shows the Way is the name of this move. And then again, balancing on the leg on the tree side, we extend the other leg forward with the heel not touching the floor. And that's the mischievous child that won't go the way the Master shows. This is the stubborn child. And then another bow, the crane bows to the moon. So crossing the midline with the foot is stimulating for the brain also. Wakes it up, creates a harmony. And then we come back to the center. Let the hands be loose and the wrists relax, come up. Press forward and sink. Breathing in and a long exhale. And then looking towards the trees, we'll part the curtain, then relax the arms. Look towards the street, part the curtain. And then, Gary Sanders loves it when I do this. Hold your middle fingers and create 2 dragons. Now, he says this means something else, but anyway, I make it 2 dragons rising from the sea, sinking back in. The 2 dragons are twins rising and playing like porpoises or something. But feel the shoulder socket twisting one direction then the other, and the breath is full, sense of agency in the whole body, swimming with the porpoises. Okay, then we calm down, ride the waves across the bay sideways. Just following the waves across. So this is calm agency. Doesn't have to be boisterous. Now this is a trickier one. Balancing on one leg, we'll say the tree side, holding a ball. The top of the ball is the same side as the the engaged foot. Lift the other knee and pass the ball off towards the street. Then balance on the street side and pass the ball off towards the trees. This is the lion playing with the ball. We have these huge paws that are full of power, but we're not breaking the ball, we're just gently handing it off. So we're mindfulness of power and restraint. Okay, then planting the feet, opening to the side, embracing energy from the universe, bringing it into our lower centers, opening and pulling in, attracting all the energy we can open to. And then up on the toes, we rise like a phoenix from the ashes. And turn, rise. Then we step towards the corner, bring our hands together. It's called boxing both ears. It's a Tai Chi move, but it's also a way of massaging the upper spine. You can't make this movement without relaxing in between your shoulder blades. And then coming back to the center, opening to the earth with open palms, just absorbing from below earth energy. Changing direction. And then opening to the side, we draw energy from the heavens. Balance all that earth energy. All right, thank you very much for your kind attention. It goes on the left here. What's it connected to? It's a wireless thing. Somebody gave it, I guess Cricket gave it to Robert as an experiment to see. Now I'm messing up your.
Well, my ears are.
There we go. I had it turned wrong.
Okay, got it.
Is
Okay.
that better?
Yeah, I think so. My ears might be a little weird for this thing. We'll see.
But it's right where you're
Okay. Well. Good morning, Sangha. I have a new thing on my head. It feels kind of weird, but apparently you can hear me, so that's good. My name is Avi. I'm community coordinator, and my job is to help you access this place. I want to wish all of you happy Pride, and I also want to wish all the fathers out there happy Father's Day, and particularly even if you don't have sons or daughters or children, but you have helped a child in some way. I think any men that have acted like fathers, even if they're not your sort of like legal offspring, I think deserve to be called fathers for Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all of us who care for the little ones. In terms of volunteer needs, we have a continuing volunteer need, speaking of helping the little ones, we have a continuing volunteer need for people to help volunteer in the classroom during the Sunday Dharma gatherings. We need 1 to 2 people in there, and for the last couple of weeks, nobody has been signing up. So I would just gently ask that you consider taking part or all of a Dharma gathering and helping with our young ones who represent the future of this Sangha. It is a very satisfying thing to do, and some of the parents go in there from time to time, but the idea is also to help the parents get a respite because they need the Dharma also. So you can go on the website, on the homepage, and you can find out how to sign up. If you're going to sign up, signing up for one day is good, but signing up for like once a month would be even better. So something to think about. Things that are coming up. On Wednesday, June 19th, we have a special planning session for Engaging the Dharma, that initiative where we take what we learn on the cushions and we bring it out into the community in terms of mindful action. There's a dinner planning meeting at Laughing Planet on Southeast Woodstock from 6:30 to 8. They will be going over some options for the coming months. Information is posted on the homepage. Please show up, even if you've had no connection with the Dharma, the Engaging the Dharma initiative before. They would welcome you, and they would love to hear your voice in terms of what your thoughts are about priorities. On Sunday, June 23rd, there's a non-PIMC event that we are helping host. It's called From Suffering to Peace, an evening with Mark Coleman. He's written a book, and he will be talking about the depth and context of mindfulness practice as a practice of profound transformation that supports insight, wisdom, compassion, and freedom. And if you want to find out more about it, the information is on here. There's a link to the Facebook event. On Saturday, July 6th, we have our July edition of the First Saturday Retreat Day Long. On Sunday, July 7th, we have our newcomer orientation session with Robert. On Wednesday, also July 7th, we have our next regular meeting of the Engaging the Dharma Initiative. On Wednesday, 7th through the 19th, is Robert's Mountain Waters Retreat up in Nelson, British Columbia. I believe that there are still spaces. You can find out more about it on the website. Tuesday, July 9th, we have our next NVC practice group with Doyle and Kirsten. Then on Sunday, July 14th, we have our second Sunday PIMC potluck. And then Saturday, July 20th, we have Buddhist movie night. We'll be screening Brother, Sun, Sister Moon. And then Saturday, July 20th, will be Jim's next Qigong half-day retreat. If you would like to become more engaged in this place, please see either me or Kirsten or write to us. It's a really satisfying way to bring the Dharma into your life, because part of the Dharma is getting to know other people and feeling like you've got a shared platform for relationship in terms of this thing that we're all trying to work with and figure out. If you would like to know more about this place and you would like to be more connected to this place, there is a sign up in the back on the clipboard where you can give us your contact info, and I promise you will get emails right in your inbox about what's going on here, which I know you've been wanting because you don't have enough email. Well, we'd be happy to give you some more. I think, let's see. For questions about anything having to do with PIMC, please contact me. I'm in the office most mornings, Monday through Friday, or most weeks. You can call me, you can email me, you can visit. If there's anything I can do to help you access this place in a way that gives you more of what you want, I'm happy to do it. And have a good day, y'all. It's a beautiful day out there. Thanks for being here. Yo. Yeah, please.
Hey, good morning. Can you guys hear me? All right. My name is Vic, and I just wanted to invite you all to the next Mindful Wilderness hike that's going to be happening on the 29th of June. So that's not next Saturday, but the Saturday afterwards. And I know the last time about 6 of you folks joined up, 3 of us ended up going. It was absolutely beautiful. We saw black bear. We were able to, cross some streams and spend all day out in the wilderness. And this is going to be something similar. We're going to be in the Eagle Creek hike, and it's going to be in the Salmon Huckleberry Wilderness. It's going to be about 6 miles in, 6 miles out. It's not going to be very steep like it was the last time. So it's only about 600 feet of elevation gain. But I have some flyers. I'll send out some notices on Facebook and the listserv. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd like to have you guys join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. If I were a Theravadan monk in Thailand or Sri Lanka, parts of Cambodia now again, I would, rather early in the morning, put on my bowl with my other monk friends, and we would walk to the village, or we would walk through downtown Bangkok. Happens early in the morning. And we would walk like this. And in the villages, it's very clear, when you come to a house and someone comes out with food, you turn toward them, and they put the food in, and then you don't acknowledge them. There's no thank you. There's turning, and then going on your way. And it can be really icky. People, this is the problem with this. People want to teach their children the practice of generosity, and so they give them a handful of sticky rice and they put it in your bowl. And in my brief experience doing this, I wanted to pay attention to where that bite was because I really wanted to not eat it. But Jack Cornfield, who was a monk for a long time, said that Ajahn Chah, for some period, had everyone bring their bowls in, and then they put it in a big pot, and then they put it all up, and then they redistributed it. And there are other vows. There's Dhutanga vows. Talk without moving your head. In which one sits down and starts eating, and you eat from the top. You don't avoid anything. And if you get up, the meal's over, and there's another meal the next day. 1 meal a day. But this was given to me by Tangpulu Sayadaw, the great old master that I was with very briefly in Burma. And it's a symbol of the way that we support the center. It's bad. I think I'll use the other one next time. We're interconnected. We are, in my remembrance from seeing it on a time or two, we are one consciousness manifesting as separate individuals. And this center is a beacon of hope for many people. People walk in the front door and they're looking for something. And what we're looking for is a way to feel at home in our bodies, at home in our relationships, and at home with each other, and perhaps to find much greater happiness. And this happens, one way that it happens is your volunteering, and another way that it happens is through your financial support. We're working on a letter to send out, hopefully in the next week or so, which has to do with the cultivation of a community of philanthropy or a community of generosity, where generosity is really the floor of our practice. Because we've added Gregory Maloof now as a part-time manager. And so there's Avi, Gregory, Robert, and Rebecca, and Cricket, all of whom receive some part of our support, financial support from the center, and things need to be repaired all the time and so on. So we're asking, what we found is that we need to increase our income by 15% over this next year, which shouldn't be difficult in a way because we increased it by 35% last year, getting the money together for the ramp, which is still to come. So anyway, that's a heads up, and you can use this bowl here, or you can use the wooden box back there, or you can go online and join what we call the stewardship circle. And that's the best way, because that means you give when you don't come, which is handy, but also it lets us do the budgeting much more effectively. And we're so fortunate. We have Doug Ross, who was a chief financial officer for major companies. He was in charge of the project where they built the East Side Goodwill. You know that one on Martin Luther King, that whole big complex? He was in charge of that construction. So we learned a lot around our construction project, which is mired in the city's permitting still. So we've got really wonderful people on the board, and particularly around the financial thing, it's really, really crisp. So, thank you, Bull. Oh, I think it's, yeah. Go back to square one. This is a test, 1, 2. That's good? Good enough? Yay. Yeah, then we're solid. All right. I feel better with it on the right side anyway, for some reason. Decades of There's actually a bit of a story about this device. When we bought the building, shit. When we bought the building, I was already very attuned to the need for devices for the hearing impaired, because my mother-in-law was totally deaf in one ear and had 30% hearing in the other. And so we quickly got a very low-end PA system with speakers, and we discovered that didn't work. This room is very complex in terms of sound, and so I found a guy who did the sound for churches a lot, churches, rock concerts, and actually the sound, this speaker that most people don't even notice that's a very expensive, remarkable speaker that's very clear and it covers the room perfectly. And I had this crappy little microphone, and the fellow, wish I could remember his name. We were standing out outside my office, and he said, "You need to get a good microphone." And I said, "Well, this works." And then he said, "How long have you been teaching?" I said, at that point it was 25 years. And he said, "Do you know how much your instrument would cost if you were a professional musician who'd been playing for 25 years? Right? And then he said, "You need to get a decent microphone." And this is the Countryman. It's still state of the art. The sound quality is so extraordinary. It's got very little distortion. So it's been here. It's been doing this now for 15 years. And it's a great thing. And if anyone is having trouble hearing, we have, once again plugged in, thanks to Jim and I, the devices for the hearing impaired are back there. And they're very high quality now. They really work. So, I don't know why that was important to say, but grateful to him. Hello to those of you joining us on the internet. So let's go here. This is a little piece that I got from The Sun magazine in 2005. It's by Kathy Kelly from Florence, Massachusetts. My father was the second oldest of 7 children. His mother died of a brain tumor when he was 17. His father, a violent alcoholic who had beaten his wife, promptly abandoned the children. The younger ones were placed in foster care or in the Catholic home for working boys. My dad kept track of them all, hoping to bring them together one day under one roof someday. He never did. My grandfather held an inexplicable grudge against my father. He would mail Dad postcards from seaports around the world that read, "Dear Jim, I'm alive. No thanks to you." Toward the end of his life, my grandfather lived in the streets in New York City. My dad paid the owner of a flop house my grandfather frequented to make sure his father always had a meal and a bed. My grandfather died in that flop house of tuberculosis sometime in the 30s. My father did not tell me these stories until I had kids of my own. By then I was mad at my dad because his own drinking had made our home a scary place for me as a child. I was mad at my mom because she'd been so passive, hardly ever getting out of bed. I was mad at my brother for leaving home and never looking back. I was mad at my sister for being everyone's favorite. I felt the world owed me one big apology. My mom had plenty of time to apologize as she lay dying, but she didn't. My dad didn't apologize for his drinking, but he did get sober. That was apology enough for me. It was a pleasure to listen to him hum a tune as he stood on a ladder in my home making electrical repairs for me and the kids. I am older now. I have learned what a mistake it is to wait around for people to apologize. A wise person once said that holding on to anger is like eating rat poison and expecting the rat to die. No longer do I look down on people who offend me, extending forgiveness from my lofty perch. I understand now how limited we all are by circumstances, time, history, place, and luck. We humans are a frail lot. Compassion seems to be the only thing that saves us. I'm older now and I've learned what a mistake it is to wait around for people to apologize. A wise person once said that holding on to anger is like eating rat poison and expecting the rat to die. No longer do I look down on people who offend me, extending forgiveness from my lofty perch. I understand now how limited we all are by circumstances, time, place, history, and luck. We humans are a frail lot. Compassion seems to be the only thing that saves us. One of my Sufi teachers decades ago gave a talk in which he said that if you're really going to take your spiritual life deep, there's several things you have to run into and make peace with. One is your father. Another is your mother. And another is the religion of your childhood. And there's more than that, I think. If we've experienced, or to the degree that we've experienced trauma in our lives, we have to meet that too. Wherever we have encapsulated feelings, thoughts, memories, we will have to pass through that portal. I have a model, which those of you that have been coming for a while, you've heard in a variety of different ways. And it's become simpler over the years. I think it's really true that there is one consciousness. And it's the consciousness of the universe. We could call it the Christ consciousness or the Buddha nature or whatever tradition we happen to come into. But and that's that kind of flies in the face of our subjective experience. You know, the classic, the sperm meets the egg and fertilization happens, and then the egg implants miraculously, and then 9 months later there's birth, if everything goes miraculously well, and then there's somebody training, and we really become a somebody. And that somebody is profoundly, if not completely, dependent upon the context in which we happen to be born. I know years ago I saw it's funny the way little moments of TV or something really sink in. It was a brief interview, 3 minutes or so each, with a family in Southern, this was back when the Troubles were in full swing. The family in Southern Ireland training their child to hate the people of the North. And there was a similar video of the people of the North training their children to hate people from the South, different religion. And the same happens in the Israeli-Palestine catastrophe and the Hutu and the Tutsis and wherever, and we're doing it increasingly here. We're getting more and more polarized, and we're portraying the other as inhuman, and so that means we can do whatever we want to them because they are less than human. And the human mind is quite capable of that. It goes to it easily. So it's so easy to develop, it's so essential to develop a very strong sense of what do you think it is? Is that on? The watch? My pacemaker? No. Stop. Things are unpredictable, aren't they? So, could somebody close the windows? There's something I'm trying to get to. I have a favorite book I highly recommend. It's called When Good People Do Bad Things. It's by James Hollis. And it has this beautiful first line. I mean, the first line is worth the price of the book. The I that I know does not know enough to know that it does not know enough. The ego, the I that I know does not know enough to know that it does not know enough. It's remarkably unconscious. And it thinks I'm me. The next few pages say essentially this, the essence of Jungian depth psychology. The conscious ego is a fragile island floating on a vast sea of unconsciousness that we call the psyche. There exist within the psyche autonomous complexes which can and do usurp the ego, blow the ego out of the water. And complexes are made of the same stuff as the ego, and they're profoundly powerful. And you can know it for yourself very simply. Please raise your hand if you have any addictions or compulsions which you know you would really be better without, but you still keep doing them. Why don't you stop? Because it's not you that's doing them. It's these complexes, it's these aspects, these structures. And when a complex is fully into power, in the driver's seat, perceptions are different, emotions are different, feeling is different. It's really quite remarkable. And we don't like to admit that that's true. But just look at our relationships and so on. So, what brings us to meditation? We discovered, we have some inkling that I'm suffering because my mind is out of control. Right? I keep on with this addiction, or I keep treating my partner this way, or I notice this self-hatred that happens. And we have a self-hatred pattern happens, and then there's, damn, what's wrong with me? I can't stop doing it. And there's more. It's like layers of it. So people come often to meditation because it becomes, the inkling strikes that I've got to do something about my mind. Man, I've got to do something about it because it's hating me so badly, or my anorexia continues out of control, or maybe there's just constant worry, or maybe as soon as I start getting close to someone, somehow or another, I blow it up. And if we're really fortunate, we run into a spiritual practice that really works. And so then we start with a very simple practice. Well, there's the refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha, which is really foundational, at least to get that in as an idea, which then over time we can see its power. But if we happen to come to mindfulness, we develop a really simple practice. I sit down, and I am going to control my mind and train my mind to stay with the breath. And I'm going to learn to calm down my stress. And then after we get a little more broad, when we realize, whoa, this thing's out of control, and we start observing our emotions and our thoughts. And then part of the goal becomes, well, I'm going to become a little more psychologically well-balanced. And this practice really does that over time. So the ego, or so we can think of it, gets this notion, I'm going to do something to make myself happier. And then we do this practice, and we maybe join a community, it's so helpful. Maybe go on a retreat, which really then ups the ante. And we increasingly encounter parts of ourselves that we'd really rather not own. We'd rather project them on someone else. We'd rather blame someone else. But over time, it becomes really apparent that it's this mind that's doing it. I'm remembering an aha I had 30 some years ago. It was in my first marriage, and there was lots of conflict happening, and I went away on a 10-day or 2-week retreat, and she wasn't there. But the mind continued doing this whole thing. It wasn't her, it was in here. This was what was creating the highs and the depression, and it became more and more obvious that it was my responsibility to deal with that. So, if we were to imagine the self as, well, it's actually true. A few eye blinks ago, I didn't exist and you didn't exist. True? Maybe a few years, but it's not long. And a few eye blinks further in what we call the future, And we're not going to exist. That's kind of a big pill to swallow, isn't it? If you think about it. In fact, there's a good case to be made that all of our anxiety rests on the fact of the denial of that, the denial of our death. Because it's kind of unsettling. So, I set off into meditation and I start observing the breath and the body sensations and then thoughts. And I'd start discovering that they're all in motion, they're all impermanent. The mood of yesterday isn't here, the mood of half an hour isn't here. I'm of low energy and I visit a favorite coffee shop and suddenly I've got bright energy. Where's the stability in that? And we begin increasingly to notice the truth of what the Buddha taught of anatta, that the self isn't, the stable self isn't. So in a way, if we imagine the ego at the top of the droplet, and then we're making our way down inside, we're going deeper into ourselves, and then we discover parts of ourselves that are luminous and loving. We're more generous and kind than we ever thought we could be, or we feel so connected with others sometimes. And other times, exactly the opposite is true. And with persistence in meditation, our sense of who or what we are gets bigger. And so we discover, oh gosh, I really do have anger. Or I really do have sexual desire. Or I am as brilliant as I always thought. Right? You discover how much more intelligent we are. Or perhaps we discover, maybe I do have a limitation in this, but we're accepting ourselves more and more and more and more and more. And as we do this, one of the complexes we will encounter has to do with this person who in this lifetime played the role of father. And our task is to turn toward that as it reveals itself and to do the work that's necessary to come to terms with it. Some of us in this room had really bad experiences with fathers. Let's just see, I've never done this. Please raise your hand if you had a pretty darn difficult time with your father. Who had a really good time with your father? Who had a father who really succeeded in the role? Okay. And of course it can oscillate. How many people had your father die young? Who has a father still alive? Perhaps, who has a father with whom you have no communication? Yeah. It makes me sad. And just to support that for a moment, sometimes the only sane, loving thing to do is to say to yourself and perhaps the other person, I'm sorry, this relationship is just too impossible for me, and I will not be in contact with you. There aren't any hard, fast rules like you should. However, as you go inward, you will encounter this, and if you can't make friends with it, it'll always be there nagging. It'll always be poking. I think on Mother's Day I told this story way back 40 years ago, teaching here in Portland. I would end with a loving kindness meditation. Maybe 30 people were in the room, and we'd be holding hands, and and I went through the various loving kindness possibilities, and thinking of the person, I don't think I had played the role of your mother vocabulary yet, but I invited people to think a kind thought about their mother. And this one woman always laughed. Just before the end of the thing, she kind of stormed out, and I talked with her one time, and I said, "You leave rather abruptly. What's going on?" And she said, "I am not going to be in any circle where I have to think a kind thought about my mother." And we talked a little further, and I found out that she was a psychologist. And I didn't say it then. It was years later, you know how this is, that I realized that I was inadequate to my role at that moment, because I really could have, and now would attempt to say, you work with people. You have people come to you for guidance. And if you haven't made peace with that structure in yourself, how can you possibly help them with that in them? And you're probably doing harm. Actually, I had a similar thing happen in social work school. I was in, my still dear friend, Larry Thornton Jones, and I were in a class together, or lots of classes together. And Doug Pullen was there too. And it was a class on sexual abuse. And it was the classes were mostly all women. And the teacher asked, how many of you would be comfortable working with the victims? And everyone put up their hands. And how many of you would be willing at least to consider working with the perpetrators? And the 3 guys put up their hands. And then I unskillfully opened my mouth and said, wait, these are human systems. And everyone here everyone in the system is as deserving of our love. And how can we move so that this program deals with that? Not well received, interestingly. Because, of course, the wounding is so deep. Right? So, Father, have another poem. Come on, here we go. I forget where I got this one. Elsa Brooks is the poet. She wakes up to the sound of crying, muffled in the darkness. She takes tentative steps to the room upstairs. It's her father. Bottles on the floor, cigarette in his hand. The room is subdued and smoky. She turns to leave as silently as she walked in. He whispers, "I'm sorry." Tears flow freely, streaking her cheeks. She runs to hug him. 4 years later, and they're still hugging. They still cry together, but now they can laugh together, take trips together, play cards together, friends as well as family. They live in a small brown house. It was so cold, so empty. She still cries on her own, so does he. He has a son who can't be with him, who feels guilty for loving him, a wife that despises him, but a daughter who can't live without him. He's her rock, her savior, her knight in shining armor. She is the light of his life, the apple of his eye, his second chance, his path to redemption. So what to do? Let's just do a little guided meditation, a few minutes. I wonder. In the past, I've always played some lovely music from somewhere, and YouTube has taken to blocking it immediately if it's patented or copyrighted. So let's see if this will work. We are leaving our time now. We are entering a time where watches don't matter. We're entering the time of the heart, the time of memory, time of feeling. Please also enter your body. Notice how it feels to be a human being in the body. Notice how your body breathes. And it's been breathing like this since the moment you were born. You've had countless experiences in this lifetime. And some of them have happened in the context of a relationship with a person that you think of as father. I invite you to, in a gentle, subtle way, not opening up to the worst or even a particularly painful time in your life with that person. And to think about this person who in this lifetime played the role of father. Think of the story that you have about him. Often these stories are 99% or 95% unconscious. We just take them as the truth. My father was a good man or a bad man, or my father was an alcoholic or a drug addict, or my father hurt me in this way. On the other hand, some of us at least, my father was this wonderful person. He had his flaws, of course, but on balance, he was a kind person. Certainly did the best with what he had. Now, bringing into consciousness to the best of your ability the story that you have about your father. And perhaps ponder for a moment if this story isn't a little narrow, a little focused perhaps on the dark side, the shadow side of this relationship. maybe even a little idealized sometimes. The way that we put down the burning coal of resentment, the Buddha said to hold on to grudges is like holding a burning coal. Preparing to hurl it at another person, but we never get to the hurling, we just get to burn this hole in our hand and our heart. Notice how much it hurts to hold on to some of these old grudges. And consider if maybe it's time to really look carefully at the grudges. To look at how it affects your life, to have a wall of resentment. Favorite grudges, favorite stories that you use to reinforce this fixed attitude. And perhaps remember to contemplate this person who played the role of father. Contemplate that time before he existed. Who was he then? And to remember whatever you can remember about his childhood, his infancy, where he grew up, how he grew up, the traumas that were no doubt in his life. And sometimes we can even be so bold as to invite this person who played the role of father into our own hearts and our own minds. And you can do this, you must do this in a way that you feel safe. Sometimes people have discovered they can observe this encounter as though they were watching on television or through the glass at a bank. By all means, you must keep yourself safe. And so to perhaps have a moment where you get to be face to face with this person who played the role of father. What is there you need to say? What has been left unsaid? And what is it that he has to say to you, or what is it you need to hear from him? What is it you've always longed to hear from him? And the word forgive is an odd one, because we link it with forgive and forget. And somehow or another we think of being forgiven by God or something like that. But in this context, forgiveness has to do with setting ourselves free, letting go of our end of the rope. And perhaps in your own heart you could say to this person, or this image of this person, I really want to live happily. I want to let go of these burning coals of hatred and anger. I forgive you. And forgiving doesn't mean that we'll ever let the other person into our life again. And it certainly doesn't mean we'll forget. Instead, we'll use the wisdom that comes out of our deepest meditation practice. And we'll let go of that knot in our heart. This person who played the role of father in this lifetime, or perhaps who still plays it. It's so important to get to see them as an ordinary human being. An ordinary human being who has truly done the best that he could given the hand that he was dealt. Mostly though, focusing on your own heart, your own willingness to let go of the past. For where does the past dwell? What is the past? It's a class of thoughts. Just like the future, we never know how it will turn out. But what really exists, ever, always, is right now. The safety of your body right now, here in this present moment. Sitting in this Dharma hall. Having strange staticky sounds break in. And notice how they come and they go, just like everything else. And so let us do our best to make peace with, to experience fully any memories, memory thoughts about this person who played the role of father. Now these words, of course, are simply an invitation, suggestions. Your own intuition, your own sense of beauty and poetry and love and forgiveness and your own desire to live happily in the present moment is what guides you. All rooted in your practice of mindfulness. And whatever it is that calls you inward. And so please land in your body, in your breathing. And then letting your eyes open and reorienting to this time and place. kids are here. I want to say one last thing. No. In my difficult relationship with my father, who's now been dead for 25 years, with my first marriage, I didn't invite him. He was living with my mother, but his drinking was really bad, and she didn't want him to come. So she came, and he was in Montreal, and I promised I would call him on the day of the wedding, and I forgot until it was bedtime, 10 o'clock here, and I suddenly was, oh man, this is really... And so I called. And he said, oh, I'm glad you called. I thought you'd forgotten. And he never talked very much, but he said something that night that has stuck with me, and I've said it many times since. Well, Robert, we do the best we are. And I really think that's a great truth. We do the best we are. Given the conditioning that we've had and the worldview that we've come to have, that's what we have. And so to really know that, to be humbled in one's meditation practice and think, oh, I've got it together now, and then do something really stupid or really harmful to yourself or others, it's then so, I find it comforting in a way. It's like, well, that's why people do the crazy things they do. It's because they're unconscious. And so to hold this person who you have as the person that you had that father word on, to really think of them as a separate person, not even really related to you. They just got to play that role, and they're off on their own journey. And it's really quite, it's challenging, isn't it? So that's a little honoring of that person who plays the role of father. So thanks for coming. Please let's make a big circle, and we'll have a little circle in the middle with the kids. Thank you to those of you that have joined us on the net today. And as always, you may join us in the center circle. Come on, Misty. Come on into the middle. We need more people in the middle. Hey, you'll hold hands with me, not like some of these little kids. Come on in. Come on in. You don't have to. Here we go. Aha. So, may I hold thy hand? Thank you. Rebecca, did you have a good time this morning with the kids? Yes. It's always so sweet to drop in there. It's really nice. You create such a gorgeous environment. Safe. So here it is, a hand on the right and a hand on the left. Let's give the one on the right a little squeeze. And what would your wish be for this person? If you could wish anything you wanted, and for the person on your left. And the person between your hands. What about that one? Wishing them well. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May all those we think of as Father, or that part of ourselves that thinks of itself as Father, may we be merciful. And may we find that tremendous peace of relinquishment when we accept things as they were. They were as they were. They're not going to change. But our relationship to them can open up, so it's sort of like looking at somebody else's life, or what an interesting story. And we probably have a designated youngish person. Is it you? Both of you. Yay, all right. All right, get close. Get really close to the microphone. When you're ready, 1, 2, 3.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you. And thank you, Avi, for reminding us about Pride Day. We're so capable of not being open-hearted and accepting as a species. So let's embrace ourselves in all of our different forms and orientations, and to love everybody as best we can on all sides of all polarities. Because that is the way forward. Well, should we skip blowing out the candle today? No? No? Oh, okay, gosh. All right, have you got a wish? Have you got a wish? Oh, Connie's fighting her way in, pushing her aside. There's competition for the... Have you got a wish? Yes, yes? Have you got a wish? You don't? You do? Don't tell me. All right, jeez. Thought you were going to blurt it out. All right. 1, 2, 3, blow. Whoa, what a wind from over there. That was heavy. Yay. So please do come and join us for a cup of tea and connecting with each other, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, dear friends. Not till the fall. I need to pick a date in September.